Welcome to Industry Insights once again. My name is Sean Marshall. I'm the founder and director of Prosumer Connect. Again, calling onto our glass expert, Stephen Lurie. Thank you very much, Stephen, for availing yourself. And thank you for agreeing to unpack this prickly topic that we've got going for you today.
Thank you very much for having me once again. Hello, everybody. You're probably tired of seeing me by now, but good to be back.
Never tired of seeing you. So today's topic, we're unpacking Competition Commission, the right of repairs. As the community would be aware, this is a common topic that we're unpacking across the industry, and the glass environment is certainly not one of the environments that won't be touched. So Stephen, let me jump right into the conversation. From your understanding of the new guidelines implemented on 1 July, how do you foresee that impacting your environment in the glass space?
So unfortunately, I think I'm going to answer a short question with a long answer and maybe give some context. I think we need to go back a couple of steps and define an OEM, the OEM dealer network, and then how alternates or generics fit into the picture, etc. Right. So, I mean, OEM stands for original equipment manufacturer, and basically it would mean the manufacturer of the vehicle. So the original vehicle as it came from their manufacturing line. Most OEMs will then have dealer networks, which is where you'll end up buying your vehicle and taking it back for a service. Mm-hmm. And if you do need to buy genuine parts, or if you want to buy genuine accessories, as they termed, you would go back to that dealer for that purchase. Yes. So if we are talking generic parts or alternative parts, the main difference is if you purchase a part from an OEM dealer, that will be the very same part that was supplied by the very same manufacturer for that vehicle when it is built on the production line. A generic or alternative part is one that may have been produced also by the same supplier that supplies the OEM, but they make it available in the aftermarket through their own distribution channels as opposed to through the OEM dealer. And it is also a part that is offered by other manufacturers. So in other words, they will make that same part for that vehicle even if they are not the original supplier to the OEM of that part.
So the fundamental difference is the badge.
Theoretically, well, not theoretically, absolutely yes. So if you buy the vehicle from the dealer, it'll have the manufacturer of that vehicle's logo on it. In terms of glass regulation, it also has to have the logo or the name of the glass manufacturer. So you will quickly be able to see with an alternate whether, even if it doesn't have the car logo on it, whether it's the same manufacturer that manufactured for the car manufacturer.
I did not know that.
So if we are talking about the latest Competition Commission guidelines, along with right to repair and to be able to choose your service provider, plus to be able to choose the parts, I think it's important to know then that obviously your choice is to use the OEM dealer or the OEM approved repairer to do the repair, and whether you use the original OEM part or whether you buy an alternate.
But I've got a question for you, and sorry to interrupt you because it's a burning question that I seem to circle back to with all my experts. When we talk right of repair, what I understand you saying is you've got a choice what you want to fit to the car, be it glass. So let's talk about glass because that's your experience. But now, if I drive a X5 5-year-old vehicle and I want the BMW badge, I want the BMW windscreen, surely I can then have it vice versa. So if I've got the right, I can say, yes, I want the alternative glass. But don't I also have the right to then say, but no, I want the OEM product?
Absolutely, you would have that right. Obviously, the way, if you're insured, the way that the insurer would control that in many cases is is they would either ask you for a greater contribution, in other words, your excess may be higher, or depending on the policy you have, they may say, well, that's absolutely okay. You can go with that and pay your standard excess.
So it would
I think
come
different
down to,
insurers have different ways of approaching that.
Yeah.
And I imagine that going forward, the industry will over time develop to understand what's required in those environments.
And that's the reason why I ask you, because look, at insurance policy pretty much says, and most says, the insurer has got the right to repair, replace at a dealer of their choice. So from previous conversations, there seems to be a bit of ambiguity, I believe is the word, pertaining to who's the real owner and who makes the real decision, because, fairly, my car is owned by the finance house, so they technically the owner of the car. I'm just until I pay it off, And then the insurer is where I select the policy. So the guideline, I believe, is not clear as to who makes the decision, because once I'm insured, does the insurer then have the right to make it? And I guess those are some of the unanswered questions. That's not clear.
I think for me, we don't play in that space.
Yes.
If an insurer says to us, you may replace with an OEM glass, we'll do that.
Yes.
If they say, please don't use an OEM glass as far as possible, please use an alternative, we'll do that. And ultimately, I think that conversation then goes between the insured and their insurer.
Okay, fantastic.
But some of that ambiguity is actually created by the OEMs themselves. So in many cases, when you have a vehicle under warranty, so I know your example was that it's out of warranty, but let's use one under warranty to try and explain the ambiguity. There is almost no motor manufacturer that covers glass under their standard warranty. And there is even less of the manufacturers will cover glass even under their maintenance plans. So on one side, you will find one section of your warranty says any part you replace on the vehicle has to be the original manufacturer's part, otherwise your warranty will be in jeopardy. But a few paragraphs later, you'll find the exclusions, and without fail, I've yet to see a warranty where glass isn't excluded. Okay, so for many, many, many years within the glass industry, even for vehicles under warranty, alternatives have been used, because there becomes the argument, if you could use that word, around, well, glass is excluded from the warranty, so I should be able to use it. And the OEM is saying, well, it's not a genuine part, and replacing that glass will affect other systems on the vehicle, and therefore it does need to be genuine. Okay. So, to be honest, that ambiguity has existed within the glass replacement industry for much longer than what right to repair and the new guidelines is going to create.
And I think that's where I'm struggling with, especially on the glass part of things. On the repair side, once a vehicle is under warranty, repairs has always been manufacturer approval, OEM parts, and that's generally been the way of the work of the insurance industry on repairs of a vehicle. But pertaining to glass, I think glass we've been one step ahead for many years, because insurance industry has for a very long time made use of alternative glass on a vehicle, and the manufacturer thereof wasn't the guideline. So affecting, I can remember even back in my days with numerous of the companies, having posed the question to the manufacturer, but how does that glass impact the warranty of the vehicle? And we've had many of those debates with some OEMs, which I understand why they get upset. I mean, you're touching their part prices, you're touching their parts and those kind of things, and they generate an income from it. So, but again, bringing me back, the insurance industry has for many years, and as long as I can recall, made use of alternative parts. Am I correct in stating that, or am I incorrect in stating that?
For many years, my recollection, it goes back to just prior to 2012 even around. I remember there was a sort of a more robust usage of alternative glass starting in around 2012. 2012. And so certainly for close to 10 years, the glass industry, even for vehicles under warranty, has been using alternates. Some OEMs don't like it, and they have, when your vehicle presents itself for its next service, when you collect it, you get this nice letter that says, "We noticed during the service that you replaced your glass with a non-OEM glass, and we kindly request that you rectify this prior to the next service, or we will flag your warranty."
Wow.
So we've seen that practice. We've tried to engage with many OEMs to understand some of that. If I had to talk to you from a PG Glass perspective and the product that we use, Shatterproof, we have often questioned some of the thinking behind that. And to give you an example, probably a good punt for us here now, is that because glass is excluded for the warranty, we've often questioned how that could transpire. But at the same time, even if glass was included in the warranty, the vehicle warranty has a limited time. And even if there's a maintenance plan that's sold with a vehicle, or even a service plan, that also has a limited time. When we fit a Shatterproof windscreen, we offer a lifetime warranty. So we've consistently said that, and particularly since the advent of the Consumer Protection Act as well, that the consumer should have a choice, and that there is a value benefit for them in choosing a Shatterproof product that we fit, because they are actually on the glass getting a longer warranty than they would on the vehicle or manufacturer's warranty itself. So you talk about ambiguity, and I keep adding to it. There's a lot of ambiguity around that. But I think specifically around glass, I don't see how the new competition guidelines are going to dramatically change that within the glass fitment environment, because it has been going on within glass fitment for a while.
I want to quickly just ask you, and again, maybe from the left field and slightly out of your comfort zone, some of the changes obviously is talking about, when you talk about the OEM side of the Competition Commission's guidelines, is saying that warranties and the choice of a client where he buys a product and those kind of things, those are relaxed, because all of a sudden a client doesn't have to take a warranty product with the OEM, and that's what I'm understanding. So what you've explained to me is all the years what we've done in the industry is going to be unchanged going forward. Technically, the only difference with the Competition Commission's guidelines is now we're not going to have to front those arguments or the debates anymore, because fundamentally this guideline is saying that you don't have to take the manufacturer warranty with it, but you'll still get clients that's going to take the manufacturing warranty, I'm assuming, with X, Y, and Z, manufacturing.
I think that'll be the case, and I think in the client's relationship with their insurer, they may have to be quite clear that their choice was to take the manufacturer warranty, and they want to adhere to everything by the word in that warranty. In other words, including glass, that during that warranty period, they don't want anything but the original manufacturer's glass to be replaced in there. So I think absolutely, is the choice widened? For sure. And I think that's the case. I also think, the OEM's ability to issue a letter such as that, we're hoping that that's not going to be the case going forward, that those types of letters will be a thing of the past, because there is an onus on us, for example, if it's glass, as the glass repairer or the glass incident manager, to warranty that glass and to ensure that we fit it correctly and that we use the correct glass, etc., etc. But I think we must also take a few steps back, and before we start casting aspersions around, well, the glass, between the insurers and the glass incident managers, this has been in place for a number of years. Yes, it has. But I think we must also bear in mind that even where the insurers have perhaps wanted or even driven a process of saying, look, please fit an alternative glass, because in one of our previous engagements we spoke about the insurers monitoring the average cost of a claim to try and drive claim costs down. The insurers have quite a robust selection process for their incident suppliers. So be it a repairer or even be it a glass fitment center, when you are on one of the insurance panels to supply, there's a robust process that the insurers go through, and you all know that even from your history. And if the insurer has said, look, this glass fitment supplier plus the products they use, they're okay. They've been through the process, and the product they are using, we've endorsed. We're very okay with what they are doing. So I think at no point up until this stage has anybody had their safety compromised or whatever. If it's been a glass replacement that has been done through the insurer by one of the insurance chosen providers. And perhaps some of the ambiguity and the grey areas that's going to happen going forward is if you, as a consumer, now choose to say, well, I don't really want to follow the insurer's guidelines or the OEM guidelines, and I want to make this choice completely myself. I think that's where the grey area is going to come in, because the issue is around whether the privately chosen supplier has been vetted enough. But again, I think it goes back to one of those scenarios, is that when you have a right to choose, then you as the person choosing, you obviously make sure that you take on the risk of that choice as well.
That is one topic, and if you hit it, and it's a constant topic that I hear with all the experts, is to say, to some element, when a client does make that decision of, I want to exercise my right to do X, Y, and Z, you also need to take some form of responsibility. But that's also where, the guidelines are a bit, that's where the grey comes in, because who takes responsibility? Currently, it seems like that responsibility can potentially be on the product provider, the insurer. It's not clear who's responsible, and fundamentally, I think if we give that right to consumers, they need to take the ownership and own that.
But I think what we also have to bear in mind is a couple of things here. Firstly, they're guidelines, okay, and they've been issued by the Competition Commission as guidelines. And I think more clarity will come out when or if there are complaints, and those guidelines are then assessed, or that complaint is assessed in line with the guidelines. We'll get more clarity around the exact thinking of what direction those guidelines will be taking in terms of implementation. I can't think of the exact right words now. But it's one of those things where, even if you look at the guidelines in conjunction with the Consumer Protection Act, there's so many interpretations, and I don't think there's a direct interpretation of how this works. But even previously, because the CPA has been in place for a while, is that the warranty issue, as an example, is one we can talk about. In terms of the CPA, if we fixed a windscreen as PG Glass, the CPA clearly made it our responsibility, as we were the last company involved in the windscreen on that vehicle, that regardless of whether the warranty was still valid with the OEM or null and void, as we were the last people to touch that windscreen, we were in the supply chain, as the CPA is defined, and we were part and parcel of ensuring resolution of the consumer's issues. And I think that if you read that in conjunction with the guidelines, there is an onus on whoever works on that vehicle to ensure that they offer the necessary minimum warranties, that they do back up whatever the work that they do. That being said, anybody that's making the choice must choose a supplier that they have confidence in, that should something go wrong, they are able to go back and get that recourse that they're entitled to.
Absolutely, because I think it's a far simpler situation when we start talking about, a company like a PG Glass. But what this opens up, because fundamentally I believe the intent with the guidelines is to transform the industry, and make it available to more players. So that just means it's fine for me fitting my glass with PG Glass, holding you responsible, because you're a giant corporation. I know, you're going to stand up to what you commit to. But now the client does have the choice to have the guy next to the road fit it, and it's significantly cheaper potentially, because he doesn't have all the the costs of running the business and those kind of things. But then again, that question comes back to me, which I'm not clear about, is whose responsibility? So if the insured now tells the insurer, I want to use him, the insurer has to kind of say, okay, you're allowed to use him because based on the guidelines you are, and he does use it, but that person isn't a PG glass of magnitude and those kind of things. Who does the responsibility fall onto? Because now it's that guy next to the street, but we all know tomorrow, the day after, or 3 months from now, he doesn't exist anymore. So who stands responsible for that?
I think there's no doubt that transformation is key, and that we have to, not just within the glass industry, the whole automotive industry. And it's not that the industry hasn't done a lot for transformation and bringing more players into the industry. It is there, and I think the guidelines have sought to achieve that absolutely.
Sure.
I don't believe, and this is a personal view, that the guidelines sought to give the guy on the side of the road with no experience and no backup the ability to do that.
Yes.
And I can only use as reference the example of Europe. So, as I mentioned in one of our previous engagements, Shadowproof supplies a lot of glass that they export overseas, and a lot of glass that they produce is exported to Europe. And in approximately 2002, Europe implemented what is commonly known as the European block exemption. And the European block exemption sought to achieve similar to what Right to Repair and the competition guidelines are here. It opened up the industry to say that anybody could work on a vehicle. So for example, you didn't, within that environment, if you bought a brand new vehicle, you didn't have to go back to the OEM dealer for a service. Even your first service, you could go outside of the network to a reputable service provider.
Sure.
Within the European block exemption, if we look at parts specifically, they had a definition in which they spoke about, or speak about, it's still relevant today, spare parts of matching quality. And they went into defining spare parts of matching quality of a part that is produced by a manufacturer who is in the OEM supply chain, in other words, already supplying OEMs with parts, and that the generic or alternative part is being made by that manufacturer in the same factory that it supplies the OEM or an OEM, using the same processes and the same equipment. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that you could only supply alternatives for that particular manufacturer if you were only supplying one or two manufacturers, for example, but it meant that you were regarded as offering a spare part of matching quality if you were in an OEM supply chain. So you understood full well the requirements for quality, etc., in an OEM supply chain, and thus you were the parts that came out of that process, provided it was the same factory, etc., were of matching quality to those that were supplied directly to an OEM. And that's how that definition came about. And therefore, the European public could trust that the part they were getting was coming from a manufacturer that had some OEM credibility. When it went to servicing, they had a similar approach in terms of saying, okay, the way to check whether a workshop was able to provide the necessary service on that vehicle was to assess whether the equipment and the special tooling used in that workshop was on an equivalent nature to the tooling equipment or diagnosis equipment used in an OEM workshop. And that's why I go back and say, until we have, hopefully not, but I'm sure we will, some test cases, the true understanding of what was sought by these guidelines will not be fully understood. All I can refer to, as I've done, is say, look, in Europe, it's worked very well. It's made the industry extremely competitive. It's made the OEMs more competitive. It expanded the industry quite a lot. OEMs started doing things that they traditionally didn't do in their workshops, including things like tire fitment and all that they hadn't traditionally done in their own workshops. And because they also then became competitors to what has generally been the alternate market, if you know what I mean. So it has made that industry bigger, more inclusive, and it has also created a lot more competition. South Africa is a little bit different because it's got to address the transformation issue at the same time, which is not what was sought within the European guidelines. And I think that's where we are desperate to see what that nuance brings in terms of how far the guidelines will go to saying does the guy on the side of the road qualify, or does he still need to have a formal structure?
You see.
And I think it's important that we are open-minded to how we enable those formal structures as well to come about, so that there are more players and there is more inclusivity in the industry.
No, thanks for clarifying. And it's good to do this because, look, this is certainly a complex guideline, and like you rightfully stated, many people are questioning, how will it play out? And only time will tell. I think the fundamental thing is going to come down, in my opinion, is who owns the client? Because if it's the OEM and he buys into that product and he still continues using that product, his warranties and those kind of things, I'm bound to see some changes from the OEMs, like you said, in their warranties and those kind of things, because I think that would just strengthen their case to then say, but listen, your warranty here now specifically includes glass as well. So if you've got the warranty with me, you are forced to do it. So I just think there's room for both sides of the coin with this guideline. It's just not a one-sided all. I think there's both sides of the coin, but how it's going to play out, I'm also not quite sure.
Well, that's the thing, and I think it ultimately will be, to determine the root cause of an issue. And so I think in many cases when a warranty issue arises, there's going to be a lot more root cause analysis in terms of where did it come from. And I can give you glass as an example with new ADAS systems and the fact that you have a lot more electronics involved in the windscreen fitment environment. If something goes wrong with one of the electronic systems in the vehicle, is the OEM going to turn around and say, well, the last person who worked on this vehicle plugged a camera in, unplugged and plugged the camera back in on the electronic circuit, and that's where we've traced the fault to. Sure. And I think at the end of the day, we're going to have to work out a way that doesn't inconvenience the consumer too much, while in the background, obviously both parties are going to do some analysis.
The industry has made use of alternative glass for a very long time in a responsible way, and we don't fundamentally see this change going forward. However, having said that, the fact of the matter is there is still some questions that's not clear as to, who gives the guidelines on when to use what and how this will fundamentally play out. But again, from my point of view, thank you very much. I think I told you at a stage that the more I start unpacking this, the more, questions I have. But I think this is really one of those guidelines that really has to be implemented in the 1st of July, and we'll start unpacking it piece by piece by piece. And hopefully in a year from now, when we sit again, we can actually have a look at what's transpired and how it actually worked out in implementation. Because guidelines are guidelines. It all comes down to how it rolls out and how it's accepted and implemented by the industry by large. But Steve, thank you very much once again for your time. We really do appreciate it and some valuable insights. So thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thank you.